Hi, everybody. I'm Dave.
And I'm John.
And this is the Coffee and Capes podcast. We are two enthusiasts who enjoy drinking and talking about coffee and love consuming and talking about geek culture.
That's true. We really, really do. We're like 15 episodes in.
I believe this is episode number 15. Yes.
Yeah. If you put that into a timeline, we've done one a week for 15 weeks, missed 1 week. So like 4 months.
Yeah.
We've been doing 4 months now.
I believe we have. Yeah.
Nice. And people are still listening to us.
I know. It's amazing.
It's ridiculous.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to us. We really appreciate that.
I can't believe it.
Of course we can believe it because this is very fun. Who doesn't want to have fun?
Yes. Yeah.
All the terrible things going on in the world right now, it's we try to provide a little bit of a respite from that and just have some fun.
Yeah. True.
So you have found us in whatever way you are listening or watching us at the moment. But John, let's go through the rundown. How can people connect with us?
Yeah. So first of all, guys, please send us emails if you have questions, thoughts, or you can message us via Instagram. You can message us on Facebook. But if you do email us, it's supers@coffeeandcapes.com. Remember, it's always the word coffee, the letter N, the word capes. It's not an and. There's no A or D. So coffeeandcapes.com, supers@coffeeandcapes.com. You can find us on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We tried to start being a little bit more active on Twitter with just posting episodes there. We're on the YouTube. So if you follow us on YouTube, hello. You always get a little hint as to what we're going to be talking about if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks to our background. And we actually in a couple months we'll have a website, so you can go in and find all the episodes on the website as well, coffeeandcapes.com. It's not live yet, so if you go there, it's just going to tell you it's not live yet.
We'll save you the step on that.
Yeah, we'll let you know though when it's live. So in the meantime, drop us a line. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify podcasts, we're all over the podcast world.
Stitcher. We're on Stitcher.
Yeah, we're on Stitcher. Do us a favor, drop us give us a review. We'd love to hear kind of what your thoughts are. So you can rate us on the star scale. Unfortunately, they don't have the same rating scale that we have. And you can leave us a review. We'll read your reviews online too. We actually have, after we talk about our coffee, we have a new segment we're going to add in really quick.
New segment. Ooh, foreshadowing right there. That was great.
Yeah, that was good.
That was a tease. Nice tease. Nicely done.
Thank you. Dave, coffee. What coffee are you drinking today? I
am enjoying a cup of Caribou Blend in my coffee mug today. It's true. I have a Starbucks mug, so it's kind of weird. Worlds are colliding here, John.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm drinking some Caribou coffee in my Starbucks mug, but boy, do I love me some Caribou. I've said that before on the pod here, I believe, but let me see. Let me give you. It's the Caribou Blend, smooth and classic. I do love their little tagline of "Life is short, stay awake for it." That's pretty great.
Oh, that's a good tagline. I like that one.
Yeah. And I appreciate that Caribou Coffee is always Rainforest Alliance certified 100%. It's, small batch roasted, certified kosher parve. I don't honestly know what that means, but
I have no idea.
But it's on the bag there. So there you go. And
right.
I enjoy it very much. How about you? What kind of coffee are you having?
If you're watching us and you can see my mug, it's Black Rifle Coffee Company mug. I've talked about these guys before, but today I have, there it is, the Freedom Fuel. Freedom Fuel is a heavy-bodied roast with a kick of freedom. It is a dark roast. I really enjoy their coffee, and I like the fact that as a veteran, they're supporting veteran communities, and they actually try to hire a lot of veterans, which is really nice as well. So, but they do make a phenomenal coffee, and as always, I have some kind of creamer in here, which makes some people cringe, and that's okay. You don't have to like it. And Ladybird Provisions coffee bomb.
We do appreciate some Ladybird Provisions coffee bombs. Those are really yummy.
Yes. All right, Dave, we have a new segment we're gonna do really quick.
We are trying out a new segment. We're gonna, at least working title here is the fan fiction segment. John,
Yeah.
what do you got for us for fan
So
fiction?
yeah, fan fiction, guys. Basically it's just we're gonna read, sometimes we're getting, you know, messages in about thoughts on episodes that we've done in the past, questions being posed. This one actually comes from Nicole at Ladybird Provisions, and she wrote in and said, I had a question about The Strongest There Is, episode 12. Y'all briefly talk about the Matrix in other episodes, but would that crossover universe count? Because Neo in the Matrix is the strongest and fastest with the ability to fly, so I thought he should be a contender. I don't know how he would do against the Hulk, but he's basically Superman without a kryptonite, but not in the real world, so it's a weird gray area. So we touched on this briefly, and my take. Well, Dave, your take first.
Well, I want to say I love the way Nicole is thinking on that. That is a terrific question.
Yeah.
And clearly she gets us, because that's exactly the kind of question that we geeks love to
geek out
roll
on.
around and geek out about. Yeah, exactly. That's so great. I think it is interesting. The way you put it earlier, John, was like the Matrix exists as a fictional universe in the midst of a fictional universe. So if somehow, say, Bruce Banner could enter the world, the quote real world era of the Matrix, and then be jacked into the Matrix, would he have any powers? And I have to think not, but I don't know for sure. I don't know how that works exactly. I think Nicole's probably right that in the world of the Matrix, Neo reigns supreme. However, if you have seen Resurrections, the new Matrix 4 movie, which I don't know if we're going to do an official review of. Like,
we should at some point, yeah.
I suppose. So I won't give away, but so I'll just say that there's another character who seems to have similar abilities to Neo.
Yeah.
How about, is that spoiler free enough?
No, yeah, I think that's spoiler free.
So I would say Neo is no longer alone at the pinnacle of powers in the Matrix.
Yeah, and I agree with that. He's, which means that he can be replicated. His powers can be replicated, right, by others. Whereas if you look at like the comics, yes, we've seen alternate versions of Superman. We've seen, as far as the Hulk goes, you've got like the Abomination, you've got a number of others, but there's really only one Hulk. There's really only the one like Superman. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
every attempt, like I think Captain America is a good example of every attempt to replicate the super soldier serum has created like an offshoot, but never been able to replicate like the success of Steve Rogers.
Right.
And I think too and it's a great question, like from Nicole. It was a really good one. There's more to that, but it would take us a lot more time to dive into it. But I think that to answer Nicole's question, in my opinion, I think that it doesn't, like, he's not on the same level, because it's very dependent on where you are. And Superman, Hulk, all those guys, like if you put Neo into Marvel or DC or something like that, right? Unless he's able to jack in and pull everybody else in, he's not even close. I mean, even in the third Matrix movie where he was blinded, but he could see kind of the machines and impact the machines, he still couldn't fly. Like, he still didn't have like all of his abilities. He had some weird telekinetic connection with machines, but it's not the same. So it's interesting, right? Interesting, like, thought process. And I feel like it could take us down a rabbit hole, but I'd be curious to see what other people thought of it. Like, the geek community and is very adamant about sharing their thoughts too. And I love it. Like, it sparks intense, long conversations. So I'd love to hear what everybody else had to say.
And I think a follow-up would be, where does Agent Smith land on that hierarchy
totally.
of powers and strength in the Matrix?
Yep. Agreed. So great question, Nicole. That's the fan fiction segment. Let us know, guys, and please send in your thoughts, questions. If you put them in comments, we'll pick something and we'll talk about it, every episode, and we record our episodes weekly.
Yeah, we love all the interaction, you guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, tons. Like, we couldn't do this without you guys. I mean, we could, but it's a lot more fun.
It's a lot more fun with some interaction. So thanks for journeying along with us.
Yeah. Last week we did our Spider-Man No Way Home review.
Yes.
And this week, obviously, we're talking about something else.
This week it's time to discuss the 6-episode series on Disney Plus, Hawkeye.
Yeah.
John, overall impressions of Hawkeye.
Okay. So in all fairness, I have like a certain fanboy thing around Hawkeye. And I always have. I think it's because when I was a kid, I really dug Robin Hood as a character. So the idea that you could grab a bow and arrow and just like hold your own against anybody, and kind of cool. And there have been some really epic runs in the comics around Hawkeye. He's had some really cool evolutions. There was a point in time where he led the Avengers. He's the human element of a team. He really seems like the human element of, more so than like anybody else, the human element of like being a hero, right? Yeah. He's a lot more physically vulnerable than a lot of others. And I thought when they started kind of ramping up the Young Avengers aspect, Kate Bishop was a fantastic addition.
Yes.
And we've got to see her evolve as well. In Old Man Hawkeye, Kate Bishop was still around, and they had, their interaction in that. But so I'm a fan of the character. I also thought Jeremy Renner was a great selection to play Hawkeye. I thought he was underutilized and underrepresented early on, but they did a nice job in kind of evolving him and adding depth and showing how he was really kind of, if we think about like Age of Ultron, like he really did a lot to like save that team, right? So I liked that. So I was excited for the series. Like, I was cautiously optimistic though, because I figured we were due for maybe a letdown somewhere.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I thought the first episode was fun, but a little slow for me.
Okay. Hey, John, let me interrupt to pause and say,
go ahead.
Just as a reminder to everybody, if you have not watched all of 6 episodes of Hawkeye, this will not be spoiler free. Like as we said last week with Spider-Man and have in other previous episodes, we are not capable nor interested in keeping spoilers free.
Right.
We're going to talk about all of it. So if you haven't watched it and want to maintain surprises, probably better to pause now and come back to us when you've watched it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Forewarned is fair warned, or mid-warned is fair-ish warned or something. Yeah.
Yes. Good point. Thanks, Dave, for making that call out, because we will spoil everything.
I'm thinking about a dozen different things that I want to bring up, and all of them are spoilers.
Yeah. Same. So in order to like kind of cut this a little bit shorter so we can get into some of those things that you want to talk about, I still watched after the first episode, even though I felt it was a little slow. I also felt like the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier was a little slow. I always think the first episode is a little slow.
Okay.
And then they gain steam really well.
Yes.
Like they do. And Hawkeye did not disappoint. I enjoyed. There was so much humor. I love the tracksuit bros. They were hilarious.
Just a Bro moving company. That's
Just
so
a Bro
great.
moving company.
It's
they were
so
funny.
Yes.
I felt like Hawkeye had more humor to it than some of the others in the past.
Sure.
I thought the interaction between Clint and Kate was like built in a believable way.
Yeah.
And I thought Kate, the actress playing Kate Bishop, I can't remember her name right now.
Haley
Yes.
Steinfeld.
Steinfeld. Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know why I was thinking something else. But Haley Steinfeld, I thought perfect Kate Bishop.
Yeah, I think she gets the part. Well, obviously she got the part. I think she gets the character. Yeah, I agree. I liked the way that relationship developed. It was pretty good, and it made sense that Clint would be distrustful at first, but pretty quickly comes to see her ability, and certainly respects her desire to do some good and to use her, not powers, but to use her skills in this way. And I think even though the timeline of the show takes place over only a few days, I felt like they earned that trust that they got to at the end, where, Clint goes from, we're not partners, we're not anything, get out of here, to, hey, I'm your partner.
Yeah.
We're in this together.
Yeah.
And I think they earned it.
Yes, I would agree with you that they earned it. Like, she came to his aid despite him trying to brush her off like so many times, and was just relentless in, being there to support and pull his butt out of the fire from time to time. And hands down, she earned it. And, that kind of goes back to, and it was nice to see that happen even in the short time frame of the show. Because it aligned with like prior things that we saw within Clint. Mm-hmm. Like during, again, going back to Age of Ultron, when Clint had the conversation with Wanda, and he's like, it was kind of a funny moment in the middle of the battle where he's telling her, you step out that door and you're an Avenger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just a guy with a bow. Right. And that's who Clint is. Like, he gives people that benefit of the doubt and believes in them over and over and over again. And at first it was like he didn't want Kate to be involved because he didn't want her to get hurt. Right. And then realized she's going to be a hero no matter what he does. And I think that, that just kind of was something that he connected with. Like,
for sure. And I think he went on a little bit of a journey himself. Like, I really loved that moment. I don't remember which episode, am I 3, 4? I don't remember, one of the middle ones, where, and gosh, was it when they got breakfast, or was it even before that in the apartment, where essentially Clint says, or Kate says, you should, you're right, you should go be with your family at Christmas, and he's not or no, later she says something like, sorry, I'm screwing this up, but she says something like, after he said he's not a hero, he's a weapon, she says, you're spending Christmas away from your family to make sure that a stranger doesn't get hurt. That's a hero. You're a hero. Mm-hmm. And it's like it hadn't dawned on Clint, at least recently, that he really was a hero, and that her saying that opened his eyes to who he is, or at least who he can be.
Yeah.
I thought that was a powerful moment.
I would agree. I would agree. And there were a number of powerful moments. And there were a number of like really humorous moments. And we got to see the introduction of a couple of new characters. And we got to see a character from another show come back.
Ooh, yeah.
But we saw a couple characters actually come back and like come through. I want to talk about my favorite come through, and it's not who you think it is. It's Yelena. right? Who, by the way, my wife just thinks is the greatest like character outside of Venom to grace the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
And Florence Pugh does such a great job as Yelena. She's funny and sarcastic.
Yes.
And straightforward. And her interactions with Kate.
So good.
Do you want macaroni and cheese? Like,
they're in the middle of fighting and Kate's like, stop making me like you.
It was so good.
Right.
It was so
good with that full body throw thing.
Yeah. The conversation that went between them was very sisterly.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Which I think was made like the heartbreak that you felt around Yelena's still, pain over losing Natasha.
Yeah.
Like even more so, like just seeing the way those two interacted. And her and Clint at the end, like,
yes.
Right. And Yelena's realization that Clint didn't kill Natasha.
Yeah.
Like she thought, like Natasha sacrificed herself and, to save the world. And that realization that Yelena had, and when she finally, believed Clint, because that's who Natasha was.
Right. And his line about I wasn't good enough to stop her. And her reaction is essentially, yeah, that tracks. Like you probably aren't.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's truthful, but it's also kind of funny. And it's also kind of like, that's Hawkeye's lot in life. Mm-hmm. In the Marvel universe, right? Is to be always a little bit undervalued.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, despite the fact that like he is
kick-ass, actually.
He's pretty badass. Like his turn is Ronin, right? Which is where a lot of this came from. A lot of that, this storyline came from the wreckage of his turn as Ronin, especially with Echo.
Yes.
Maya, who was a new character we got introduced to. And, I'm curious your take on Echo and Maya, especially with the idea that I believe she's getting her own show.
So, we'll see where that goes, I guess. That's interesting. But I looked it up to get, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but Aliqua Cox, Alaqua, I don't know how you properly say her name.
If she ever listens to this, we're sorry we're butchering your name. You're very talented.
She plays Maya Lopez. So I have read that Ms. Cox, the actress, is native and actually a native person and actually deaf.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Which is what the character of Maya Lopez, Echo, is also depicted as in the comics. So I love that they did that with the casting. I think that was really a really good call.
Yep.
On Marvel's part there. I think the character herself that one left me in our 3-tiered rating system whelmed at best.
Yeah.
The character itself, the character arc and what Maya was tasked to do in this story, I was kind of meh.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with you. For me, and we talked about this, I think last week, a little bit. For me, it's a character I'm not hyper familiar with in the comics.
Yeah.
I've only just started kind of coming across her in, some books on the Marvel Unlimited app, which, by the way, Marvel still waiting for our official sponsorship to get that out.
Get on that, would you?
Yeah, make that happen.
Yeah.
But I don't know enough about her. I mean, she just recently inhabited the Phoenix. Like she's got that power, so one, for me, she's kind of a relative unknown character.
Yeah.
And two, I felt like, and I don't think this is anything to do with the actor. I think this is more to do with maybe suffering from trying to do too much by the writers in this particular case with this character. Like the tracksuit bros, we didn't need a lot of like explanation and detail on.
Yeah.
Right. We didn't need that. They were a group and they were funny and they played their part. Like, it was great. Maya, I felt like, is a much more complex character that needs more to her than what she was given.
Yeah, I agree. And as a character who's an indigenous American, like, really, wouldn't there have been a little more animosity between her and the Russian tracksuit bros? Or if they were Russian, I don't know, Russian or Eastern European or something. Like, there's that place. How did she just all of a sudden become their leader? Like, that part didn't exactly make a ton of sense. But I mean, whatever, it's fine. Like, nitpicks, I guess. But I'm happy if they give her own show and they do it well. Great, let's go.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more.
Sure.
Like,
yeah,
I'm not opposed to learning more.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I remember she showed up in a couple of Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel.
Did she?
Yeah, comics.
Okay.
But again, she was part of like a team of like 5 or 6 women that Captain Marvel was working with, and I just don't know enough about her.
And her power set is Taskmaster.
Yeah, but I didn't really feel like they made use of that so much in the show.
Which is a point of disappointment, I think, for myself, which is where I came in, expecting a little bit more in that regard.
Yeah.
Right. And then
there was no echo. There was Maya Lopez, but there was no echo.
Exactly. Like, she could fight.
Yeah.
But you didn't see her ability to like mimic the fighting style of somebody else, like instantly, like she's supposed to be able to do.
Yeah.
And it just so she fell flat.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, like, whelmed. It was like,
yeah.
Who else did we get introduced to? We had Kate, we had Maya. Oh, somebody I was overwhelmed by, though, because I thought he was hilarious and had an interesting arc throughout the show where you thought he was a bad guy for a while, and then he turned out he was not. Swordsman.
Oh, yeah.
So good.
Yeah, kind of just played him for laughs as kind of a joke of a character, which was pretty cool. I mean, I'm fine with that. Yeah, it was an interesting arc. I thought maybe he was going to have a bit bigger role to play. Didn't turn out that way, and that's fine. But the scene where he and Kate are fencing, and he looks away, and that's when he displays his skill. Like, that was pretty cool.
Right, because she gets angry and she's like, quit letting me win. He's like, I'm not letting you win. And then she like comes at him when he's not looking at her, and he like takes her in a just quick flurry. And you just see suddenly like how good he really is.
Right.
It was a nice, so his story arc to me was interesting because he was portrayed as a villain simply because of Kate's reaction to him being with her mom.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's why. Was because Kate was dealing with unresolved issues around like losing her dad and all these other things. And it was coming out as, she couldn't believe this guy was like a good guy. There had to be something shady about him. There had to be something wrong. And then the moment where he and Kate's mom are dancing in the living room, and Kate's watching it, and you see Kate soften.
Right.
And she says, I've never seen you this happy.
Yeah.
There's that moment.
In Kate's defense, he did have a pretty villainous mustache.
100%. It was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But Swordsman has a very complex and complicated history within the comics.
And connection to Hawkeye.
And in connection,
right? At least in some versions, like he trained Hawkeye. He trained Clint Barton.
Yep.
And at least in one version, and at least some comics, he named Clint as Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I can't remember the actor's name.
Tony Dalton.
Tony Dalton.
Yeah,
Tony
I've got
Dalton.
the IMDb page
Perfect.
at my fingertips here.
So I thought Tony Dalton did a phenomenal job. I would like to see Tony Dalton as swordsman in more things.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was pretty funny in the last episode where he comes out of jail he's been jailed for killing somebody with a sword, and he's walking around a formal party with a sword on his hip.
hip.
Weird flex, but okay.
Right? Totally. Like weird flex. But then, what was really cool is at the end when we get the big reveal around Mom.
Yeah.
And Kate realizes that he's not a bad guy. Yeah. And she apologizes. Right. And realizes that she's wrong. And he's out there with a sword taking out all the bad guys.
Yeah.
Like just phenomenal. And but he's just very like happy-go-lucky kind of like,
Yeah. He had a nice funny moment right in the kitchen or whatever when he comes and he looks around and everybody's gone. He's like, I feel like I missed something.
Yeah. He's so I really liked his character. I enjoyed him. He was a perfect foil for the show.
Nicely done.
Thank you. I've been holding on to that one, waiting for the right time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the big reveal, since it's been brought up, around Kate's mom, because it led to a bigger reveal.
Yes.
Right. Because I don't know about you, but they did a really nice job of leading us down the line that Swordsman was the bad guy.
Yes. Yeah. Here they have the evidence of him being the CEO of the company, one of the front companies for the tracksuits,
which he wasn't. His
relative, uncle, something gets killed with a sword.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So they just laid it out, and then we find out who's really behind it all.
It's really the mom.
It's really Mom.
Yeah. Eleanor.
Yeah. And we find out that she's the bad guy because there's two things that get revealed, right?
Yeah.
The first one was that she hired Elena to kill Clint.
Dear Lord.
And then Dave.
Which at first you're kind of like, well, is that is that out of the scene by the elevator where she tries to tell Clint to leave it, to let it go and just go home and not worry about it. And he says he can't. Like, is she trying to, at first you think maybe there's a twisted version of Mom being overprotective, like trying to look out for her daughter to keep her from being hurt by taking out Clint.
Right.
But that's not really it, I don't think.
I don't think so either. Because the second Mom reveal is
she works for Kingpin.
Yes.
Kingpin. And not just any like random Kingpin, but no, Vincent. I always say it. D'Onofrio, his Kingpin from the Daredevil show. Yes. Oh my gosh. Remember last week when I squealed about Matt Murdock being in the MCU? Like, they really are seem to be bringing that world of the Marvel Netflix shows into the proper MCU now, with a second character now with Kingpin from those shows.
Yeah.
Officially in the MCU. Pretty great. Pretty fun. Unless, of course, Kingpin's now dead.
I don't think so, though.
I don't think so either.
I don't think that's the case. I think that, because we didn't see it.
Yeah.
Right.
We're supposed to think he's dead, but there's no way. There's no way he's actually dead.
No way. He's such a big, like, if you know anything about the comics, right? Kingpin is such a central figure through so many. And we talked about this a little bit in the No Way Home review, I think, is that, you've got Kingpin who plays a pivotal role in both the lives of Matt Murdock and Peter Parker.
Right.
Yes. Right. And now that we've seen Matt Murdock and Peter Parker together on screen, right, it would make sense that we keep Kingpin as a main, as kind of a main player.
Sure. And Clint was kind of scared of him.
Mm-hmm.
If not scared, maybe that's too strong, but was certainly concerned about him. Wasn't relishing the idea of confronting him.
Right. Well, and I think part of that though is, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but it seemed that as Ronin, he did some work for Kingpin in taking out bad guys. So that and that seemed to be part how he knew Kingpin, right? Is he didn't want to have to.
Okay, I did not pick up on that.
Yeah, go back and watch episode 5, maybe, and see. But there are some nods to the idea that when Clint was Ronin, he would take jobs from anybody as long as it pointed him at bad guys.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah,
which made sense because he was in so much pain and just lashing out, right?
Right. Yep. Man, once again, every single hero has some sort of grief angle to why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And this hit Maya, Kate, Clint, all of them.
Yeah, Kate's was huge, right?
Right.
Why did Kate love like Clint so much? Because during the first Avengers, like during the Chitauri invasion,
that killed her dad,
and she looked outside and saw Clint with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
You know,
two sticks in a string.
Yeah, 2 sticks in a string fighting all the aliens, which was like, of course you're gonna have hero worship when you see that.
Yeah.
And it made sense that it led her down the path that she wound up. But back to Kingpin. Such an interesting arc for Mom to have suddenly reveal like she's the mastermind behind sending swordsmen to jail and putting the hit out on Clint and all these things because she works for Kingpin. And can we appreciate Vincent D'Onofrio's, I swear we're mispronouncing his name. And if he ever listens to this, and we are, please feel free to send me an email and explain to me how to say your name the right way. And I will print that out, frame it, and hang it on my wall. But his acting ability playing Kingpin, where he goes from what seems like this very soft, caring, like figurehead to instantly, like, you can tell he's this ruthless crime boss.
Yeah, that there's a deep reservoir of anger and violence just below that kind of sort of soft veneer.
Yeah, and like, and he's
ready to explode at any moment.
Yeah, and he'll kill anybody.
Yeah.
Like he considers Maya, to be like a niece and orders her death.
Yeah.
Right. Like doesn't have the moral block that tells him you have an emotional attachment, you care about this person, don't do that. That just like,
right.
If it gets in his way, if he feels that it's not in line with his goals, you're toast.
Yes.
Yeah, just phenomenal actor and great character. Dave, you had a little bit of a struggle with him kind of in the episode.
Yeah, I thought maybe he was a little OP.
Can you explain what OP is for our listeners, please?
That's what my teenage son calls it in the video game world, that he's a little overpowered. And we did an episode on people that are characters that are overpowered, underpowered, whatever. And his, I think, is one. Kingpin is one who fluctuates quite a bit. I'm a little confused on how he just shrugs off an arrow to the chest, unless he's got some sort of protective vest underneath the Hawaiian shirt, and or just has it woven into his shirt. Like I could see him being that kind of, he's got that kind of wealth that you could explain it away that way. But he seemed maybe a little overstrong with punching people like 10 feet around and just throwing stuff around. But so I thought maybe he was a little overpowered in that fight scene with Kate Bishop. But as you said the other day when we were talking offline, that's kind of how that character goes. There are moments when he's like extraordinarily strong, and other moments where he seems just kind of like a guy.
Yeah. And there's different takes on him in the comics. And there was a thing on Instagram. I don't know if it's from the Instagram account Marvel True Facts. Maybe if you guys don't follow that one, I would suggest it. They do some really nice like fact digging and bringing stuff to light. But I think it was them that pointed out that Wilson Fisk has very little body fat actually on his body, and he has reached like a peak level of human muscle mass performance, making him very, very dense and extremely strong and extremely powerful, which gives him the ability to go toe to toe with like some of the superpowered like folks that don't have like the peak strength like we're talking about like with Hulk or something like that, but can go up against like a Captain America and kind of hold his own for a little bit. However, one of my favorite like Spider-Man story arcs, Wilson Fisk goes after like Aunt May and Mary Jane while he's in prison. He sends out these orders, and Peter goes to prison and wipes the floor with Wilson in front of everybody inside of the prison, because as he describes it, Fisk is just a guy and Peter is super strong.
You're right. And constantly pulling his punches, Peter is.
Yeah, but he stops and like just beats Wilson like senseless.
Wow.
So we saw with the Spider-Verse movie a very overpowered Kingpin. I felt in that. In this one, a little more believable. The Arrow thing, I was like, okay, probably the guy who has stuff woven into his clothes.
Yeah.
Crime boss.
So it goes through the clothes, but it doesn't pierce his
organs or anything like that. It's going to stop it somehow. So yeah.
And the surprise moment of that, like where he just shrugs that off, and like Kate's like, "Oh dear Lord, what?" Just in her eyes, she's like, "What is happening here?"
Yeah. So
that was good. So and again, I love that they bring that character in and what it means for potentially bringing in all of the Netflix shows world.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see them bring John Bernthal in and have the Punisher be part of it. I thought his take on Frank Castle and the Punisher was the best live action version of all time, and actually finally got a really good Punisher on screen. Luke Cage, as we both talked about, just like the perfect casting on that one.
So good. But back to Hawkeye here for a few minutes. How about some little things? Like I'm looking at your background, and we know that for this series, Matt Fraction was a producer, executive producer, or consultant.
Something like he had a part in it. Yeah,
he had a part in it, and he was the main writer for now iconic run on the Hawkeye
like my
book.
Favorite run.
That your background, the pictures there come from that. On my background, the Lucky the pizza dog, and whatever the dude is over Hawkeye's shoulder, I forget what that guy was all about, but those two come from that same comic run. And I love like just the little things, like look at your background, John. The Kate Bishop's got multiple bandages on her face, and that was a thing throughout that whole run in the comics, that she and Clint both always had little like
bandages like
across the nose, nicks and scratches. And that was just one of those tiny little details that was present throughout this series. And even at the end, like when they, it's Christmas Day and they're back at the house, they both still have the bandages, the white bandages across the nose, across the face, like multiple times on their face. Like I love that little touch.
Yeah. That little touch, and the fact that we got to see Clint finally get, he got the costume from that iconic run as well. Which was phenomenal. Like that was so cool. I liked the interaction with the LARPers, that also like that group at the end that got into costume, and they're like, we're basically Avengers. Like, the little bits of humor that showed up,
and naming the one guy Grills, which was one of the characters in that Matt Fraction run. Like I like that they brought that in. That was a nice little touch.
Yeah, because that run is my favorite. We talked about it right before we started recording.
So good.
And it's so good. The art, the storytelling, everything about it, is just phenomenal.
I just thought of this too. Like, there's multiple times in that story arc where Clint says to Kate Bishop, I got to do this, like, leave me, don't follow me, kind of thing. And then she does, and she saves his bacon. And we got that a couple of times in the show.
Right.
Too.
Yeah. I love that we got Lucky the pizza dog.
Yeah. Oh, so good.
Like, talk about a little ad that wasn't necessary, but meant so much to fans. Right.
Yeah.
And that they fed him pizza. Right. It was so good.
Yeah.
So good. I think, as far as we're talking about, like, the little things that were great, the really small but highly important and revealing arc of the Watch.
Yeah. Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Right. I personally thought, like, when the Watch was introduced at the auction, that it had something like some kind of thing from Tony Stark, that we were going to get, like, hey, this is like one of those weird things that Tony made that can do like some real damage. And when we got to the end, right, that wasn't the case.
No, it was not. He gives it to his wife, whose name is Laura, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the character's name is Laura.
Yeah.
And she turns it, and and he says something about, keep better track of your things. So it's clearly her watch, and she turns it over, and it's got the shield symbol on it and inscribed with 19.
Mm-hmm.
And who was Agent 19, John?
Mockingbird, Dave.
Yes.
Mockingbird.
Yes. And there's a whole series of comics from the 80s, I think, when Clint Barton and Mockingbird get married.
Yeah. Which was such a great reveal to see that come full circle after so many, like, so much of her being brought through the stories of the Avengers, the other movies.
Yeah. But you really got to see her at work a little bit. You could tell she wasn't just, little wifey sitting at home. She was an integral part of this case, as it were, helping him, looking stuff up. They were talking in German at one point, I think, just as a way to, like, not let the kids in on what was going on.
Which was an interesting, like, little subtle reveal. You're like, whoa, hey,
yeah,
like, she's got some skills, like, that we aren't aware of.
Yeah. So that was huge as a way to end. That was really cool you get that little reveal. The question it raises, though, is that as I understand it, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show is part of the larger MCU.
Yep.
And we've already had a different actor playing Bobby Morse, who's Mockingbird, and it was the Bobby Morse Mockingbird whom Clint married in the comics. So we seem to have two Mockingbirds, which, when I brought that up, you said
we have two Hawkeyes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You could give the name to somebody else.
Yeah, you can give the name to whoever you want. As a matter of fact, one of the cool things about the end, right, is Kate, and when they're back at, like, Clint's house, and Kate's talking about names, right, because she's excited. She's finally been accepted as a hero.
Yeah.
She gets to live her dream of being a hero and helping people and become what she has been inspired to become. And she's running through, like, all these different names. The Clint's like, nope, no. And then he's like, I have an idea. And then it ends, right,
with the title card.
With the title card, which is so good. Like, that, Clint's gonna share that name with her after all that they've been through. But it also leads to, so does that mean he's retiring?
Yeah. In the comics, they both have just existed as Hawkeye.
Right.
And you get a little bit of that banter, like we did with Spider-Man, where, hey, Spider-Man, okay, yeah, what do you need, Spider-Man? Let's do this, Spider-Man. Like, you get a little bit of that, Hawkeye, go do this. Okay, Hawkeye, I'll do that. Like, where they just kind of, they use the name in a playful way for each other. So they can both exist as Hawkeye, I guess.
Yeah, and I don't see why not. I mean, they both exist in the comics as Hawkeye, right? And we have some big storylines coming up in the next, like, few years that should end up being pretty expansive.
It'll be interesting to see what Marvel does with the OG Avengers that are left in stories going forward.
So, which brings to and I know we're this is going to be a little bit of a sidebar, as we always tend to do, but we talked about this a little bit, right? With them bringing in Daredevil into Spider-Man, we've got, Hawkeye, we've got, if they start to bring in more of the characters. So let's say they bring in Jessica Jones. Let's say they bring in Luke Cage. Let's say, we get Danny Rand, doesn't need to be the one from the show, but those guys formed an Avengers team. Right. At one point that had no Captain America. But so it's entirely possible we could see a new Avengers team that has Hawkeye, that has Spider-Man, that has Luke Cage, that has Jessica, that has Sam Wilson as Captain America, so it's entirely feasible that we see that happen with the way they're setting things up. My understanding too is we're also seeing them set up like a Young Avengers or a Thunderbolts as well, right? With US Agent and the new Black Widow and Baron Zemo and all these other characters, but we're going to get Ironheart. We've got She-Hulk coming, which, so
excited for that. The Tatiana Maslany, isn't that the actor's name that plays She-Hulk? She was so great. If you watched, oh gosh, what was the name of her show? Where she played like a dozen different characters.
I don't remember.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Anyway, now I'm gonna have to look that
up. But and in hers, like now that we've had Charlie Cox, brought back into the universe and as part of Spider-Man, he's like, they're talking about that he has a significant role in She-Hulk.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. So I mean, so that's the other part of this series for me that I kind of got excited. Is it set up a number of new characters, like introduced a number of new characters, further developed like Black Widow, further developed Kingpin, and is opening yet another series of doors to create new teams. And now we're at that place where how many teams are we going to get?
Yeah.
What direction are they going to go? We have
then we got all the guys in space.
Oh yeah. All the guys in space. Nick Fury out in space.
Out in space for the last.
We're going to have the Skrulls.
Yeah, right.
Orphan Secret Black. Invasion.
Tatiana Maslany was the main characters in Orphan Black, which is a tremendous show if you haven't watched it.
I have not watched that one.
That's a lot of fun. I highly recommend it.
Orphan Black?
Orphan Black.
Okay. Yeah, I looked at that one.
Yeah. Really good. Yeah. So there's a lot of different directions they can go. I feel like we'd be remiss if we didn't mention, for me at least, if it didn't mention another moment that they brought from the Matt Fraction comic series that they brought into the show, and that was the car chase with the 72 Charger or whatever. I'm not a car guy, but like definitely the whole car chase, and in that car, like that was the car that that Hawkeyes were in the show, or sorry, in the comics. That Maya was driving that, but then the Pym arrow, like that was so much fun.
The Pym arrow,
both times.
So all the trick arrows and some of like Kate's reaction to like their arrows worse than that one,
more dangerous than that one,
more dangerous than that one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like and we got to see like how those trick arrows come about, and that Clint actually makes those arrows. Like,
where were they? I didn't really understand where they were when they were making those arrows.
I don't know, but you know what? Like, I stopped caring where people were. Honestly, after the Yelena and Kate macaroni and cheese like dinner conversation, I was like, if this is how it's going to be, they can be anywhere they want as long as these are the conversations and interactions that we're getting.
Sure. Oh, here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Where do you think in the timeline this takes place? Like, at that point, has Yelena, has she been to Natasha's grave yet and been approached by
yes. Yeah.
By what's her name? Who am I thinking?
She absolutely has to be, because remember that Madam Hydra, Julia Louis-Dreyfus,
Yes.
right, tells her that, if not outright, at least leads into the fact that, or the idea that Hawkeye was the one that killed Natasha.
Ooh. All right. I think I'm gonna have to go back and watch that scene again.
So, which is interesting because, I mean, clearly Julia Louis-Dreyfus is trying to set up a team to recruit, and she's got some other stuff going on.
Yeah,
right.
some ulterior motives for sure.
Yeah. And so there was an attempt there to turn Yelena against Hawkeye, and now Yelena is very, like, she's going to be very different, right? Because she knows that he didn't do it, and that somebody lied to her about him killing Natasha.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's clearly after she finds that out. She's obviously, like, angry at Clint, feels that Clint is the one that killed Natasha.
Yeah.
And that was,
if she was going to do it anyway, she's happy to get paid to kill him.
Right. That was kind of the thing, right? She was going to do it anyway, and now she's just going to collect a paycheck to do it, but she would have done it for free.
Yeah.
So it just, yeah, I think that's where that falls into that timeline. The other question is, does it fall, like, in the further, like, expanded timeline? Are we pre-multiverse? Are we post-multiverse? I'm going to assume pre. Right? Are we looking at it in terms of, like, is it running close to Falcon and Winter Soldier timeline?
Yeah.
Like,
that's a good question. I gotta feel like we're pre-multiverse, or not everybody noticed that the multiverse was a thing yet.
Right. Yeah. I think we would have had some things maybe that crept into Hawkeye. Maybe that's why Hawkeye started before Spider-Man No Way Home came out, to be that thing that just kind of, like, the last round of things that happen before the multiverse kind of explodes and goes nuts and does its damage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. Are we going to get another season of this show? Are we going to get another season of Falcon and Winter Soldier? Are we going to? Loki is the only one I know of that has been greenlit so far for a second season. So I don't know what they're setting up.
I feel like there's a color joke there, but I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, I don't know.
Loki being the one that gets greenlit.
Yeah, it's greenlit.
Yeah.
Or are they're doing all this now to build into Secret Invasion, which is going to be it has to be a massive event. We're talking.
Yeah.
Like, and it brings up question, and I feel like this could be a whole episode unto itself, but, like, will we get to see some of the characters that are gone from the MCU brought back in, right, to kind of play on the heartstrings of characters and, set things up, like, because that was a big part of it. Like, everybody thought Cap was gone, right, during Secret Invasion. There were literally heroes that during the Secret Invasion storyline, I believe, it's been a long time since I read it, but I believe that everybody thought they had lost.
Right. Pretty sure Mockingbird was one of those.
Yeah. And then we find out, like, a bunch of them are on, like, a spaceship somewhere.
Yeah, right.
And, they showed back up, and it's interesting. It'll be, I think, more ambitious than anything Marvel has done yet.
Yeah, could very well be. If it's not, it's going to be disappointing, because that's just such a big storyline. You can't just do that, like, half-assed, I don't think.
No, I think you almost have to make it, like, the longest series of all of them too. I think you got to take it past 6 episodes. I think you got to go to, like, 12.
Yeah.
Right. Because if it was made into a movie, I feel like you're looking at 2.5, 3 hours per installment in a trilogy to be able to go, like, all the way through.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, before we get down that tangent too much, so what's your rating in our patented Coffee and Capes rating system of overwhelmed, whelmed, or underwhelmed? What do you give Hawkeye?
I would give it an overwhelmed. I enjoyed it. I thought it paid really, more than anything else we've seen, outside of like Sam's suit in when he becomes Captain America,
Yeah.
I thought this paid homage to a classic run of a fantastic character, and did it in a way that just really like stayed true to the source material,
For sure.
which is huge.
Yeah. Well, do we get points off for the Rogers the musical? How'd you think of how was that as the end credits thing, where just more of the musical with zero commentary on it? Like that
So Dave, I sent you a meme yesterday that
Yes, you
Rachel
did.
sent me, and I sent it to Nick and Brian as well, and
Yeah.
Nick was like, it wouldn't surprise me if they were actually like making that into a thing. And I said, I agree, and out of morbid curiosity, I hands down would go see it.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
I'll be honest, the end credit scene, I was like, I can't believe I just sat through that expecting something else.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty funny though. I like that they went for it.
Yeah,
They went
right.
for it. Yeah.
And they did a really good job.
Oh, for sure. And honestly, if somebody was going to make a Broadway play about the Rogers story, that's probably how it would go. Like that's pretty much
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
pretty much how it goes. It's pretty great.
I did like before you give your rating for the show, the one other little nod when Clint went to go see it and his kids are like, Dad, like it's pretty accurate. And he's like, yeah, but that other guy wasn't there.
Right, right, yeah.
Right. Talking about like Ant-Man
Threw
and Scott
Ant-Man
Lang.
in. Yeah.
And he's like, he wasn't there.
Right.
What, it's all right. So Dave, what about you? Patented rating system. What do you give it?
Yeah. So I will admit that having seen the 6th episode so soon after Spider-Man, I feel like everything right now is going to suffer from the Spider-Man problem, in that Spider-Man No Way Home is so damn good that pretty much everything else pales in comparison.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm trying not to let that overwhelm my my rating.
Well done.
And so I too will give it an overwhelmed. I think overall, just what you said, it does such a good job of bringing especially that Matt Fraction run to life, and it was really fun. And Hawkeye's a great character, and both Hawkeyes now are great characters, and all the other things that we just talked, spent an hour and whatever talking about. Yeah, overwhelmed. It was good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Okay. Even if the last episode for me just felt a hair lesser because of the height that Spider-Man gets to.
Totally. Yeah, agreed. But still on its own accord, phenomenal. Great job. All right. Well, with that being said.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks again for hanging out. Let us know what you thought of Hawkeye. What did we miss? What questions did you bring up? And maybe we'll bring your question to the next fan fiction segment next time.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Nicole, for sending in your fan fiction question.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, well, are we trying out a tagline here? Until next time, true believers. Bye.
Bye.